Today we have India's most phenomenal personality who is a fintech leader and is known for his bold ideas, Mr. Abhishant Pant. So thank you so much, Abhishant, for being here today.
Thank you, Monica, for having me.
And it's impossible for anyone who belongs to startup ecosystem is not aware about the Abhishant Pant. But I'm sorry, I'm being honest here. Before 2 years, I was not working, and that time I was not aware about the Fintech Yatra.
Yeah.
I was just aware about one of the AV which got viral, where Sagarika or two pretty ladies were going around the cities and they're spreading awareness about the cashless transaction.
Yeah.
And I was not aware about the thought behind it. I thought it's a promotional campaign run by government because Modi ji had given a voice over there. So layman like me who is not aware about what is Abhishant Pant and the Abhishant Pant who is behind this Fintech Yatra. So I would like you to introduce you to the audience in that both way.
So, पहले तो बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद. Thanks a lot for having me here. देखिए, any individual, I think, is not as much important as the thought behind what makes that individual. So what makes me is the idea of unrelenting pursuit to find something. And that something most often than not is not defined for me.
Okay.
And as that is not defined, the challenge of searching for something which is not defined is just that you are challenged at every step of it because you don't know what you are searching for.
Right.
It is the journey that you enjoy. And that journey many a times throws up things to you which then you start cherishing. So you are not working on the journey to find something. The journey is find for you. That's who am I. So I'm not doing journey to find something. Journey is what defines me. It doesn't have an end point in mind that this is what I want to achieve. I will cherish the moments that come along the journey. I'll enjoy, then move to the next, then move to the next. But next doesn't mean necessarily that it's a exponential curve of so-called the way we see growth. It's a curve of searching for the unknown, and because you are searching for unknown, you don't know what the moment of bliss may come in the undefined moments.
Oh.
So, wo hai.
Right.
It's a bit philosophical.
Yes, but it is very relatable if we compare our life also.
मजा उन small moments का होता है.
हाँ, वो तो है. And then how the thought for the Fintech Yatra.
देखिए, again, so thought for Fintech Yatra was also very random. So most often than not in my life I have done things which are random in nature, and these random things were done with the view that करके देखते हैं. So the Yatra piece also started from the fact that I was doing a job, I was extremely well paid in that job, I had creative freedom in that job, I was enjoying the process, my boss was not an asshole. So most often than not, these are three things why you leave a job. One, you don't have creative freedom, that's one.
Correct.
Second, your boss is asshole, that's the second. And third, many a times is that you are not well paid. In my case, my boss was an amazing guy, I had an absolute freedom on creativity, and I was very well paid. More than what I could have asked for at that point of time.
Okay.
So as all these three things were in place, therefore I thought I should leave.
Okay.
Because
so
if
you have satisfaction.
You have, if all of these are in place, then your search for your own self stops.
Right.
So the idea was that ढूंढो अपने आप को और निकल पड़ो. So that's why I left the job to start this road journey with the idea that we'll explore, we'll see, we'll identify something new, and in that process we'll quench the thirst to know the world, to know the self more. And even today I have the childlike curiosity to know about anything and everything that I don't know, which is essentially it can be a hoarding, and there is an advertisement on that hoarding, and I don't know what is that hoarding all about. It can be something which has got to do nothing with us on a day-to-day life, which is what is happening in war in Russia.
Right.
And so random pieces.
Correct.
So those random pieces excite, incite, and in search of those random pieces I left.
Okay.
The job to start Fintech Yatra, which was essentially an ode to find new ideas, and in that process find something which can excite me. While doing that, I found that my journey is possibly to catalyze the journey of others.
Okay.
And that's the journey I took.
Amazing thought. That means we all know what you have you have been doing. If we go back to revisit your podcast and what your interviews so far, but another question which I always get when I see your post, be it your vacation post or be it your boot camp post. So what if somebody wants to join your boot camp for vacation? So what is the criteria for any founder needs to have?
If somebody wishes to join us, like say for example we are going on a so-called vacation in April from 14th of April to 2nd of May.
Okay. Which is 15 days.
15-16 days. Aajo.
Okay, but what is the agenda?
There's nothing defined. So if you can live with the idea that you can go with the wind.
Okay.
And if you can be free in uncertainty, then come.
Okay.
If you need agenda, if you need defined pieces, then possibly we are not the right set for you.
Okay. Great.
Because we don't go by that defined piece that ये outcome होगा, ये चीज करनी है. Most often than not, we essentially try to compartmentalize ourselves.
Okay.
कि अच्छा ये कर रहे हैं तो इससे ये बनेगा, ये बनेगा, ये बनेगा, ये बनेगा. But उसके नतीजे के रूप में we essentially kind of don't realize what will we gain in the process and what we don't.
Okay.
Most often than not, what we don't know is going to be bigger than what we know.
Right. So you don't go by the output. You just go by the pieces and then it gets the process.
The journey.
Yeah.
तो मजा जर्नी का है.
Right.
शुरुआत और अंत हमेशा ही जीवन और मरण वाला काम है. मजा जर्नी का, तो जर्नी का मजा लीजिए ना. क्यों आपको जो है एक कंपार्टमेंट. पर समस्या ये है 99% लोग जो हैं they won't be able to essentially come to a point that I am getting into something without having a clarity what will I get out of it.
Correct.
That's the reason why most often than not people don't find it motivating enough to essentially invest time.
That's not the case. But I always get I look at your post and see I wish I could be there because I have some other baggages at my home, so I'm not able to overcome that thing. And yes, you're right that you have to take the different path to explore the things that you have to.
Was simple. If I would have not left my job in 2018, I would have not explored who I can be. So.
And which is a bigger picture?
I don't know whether it's bigger or not. I will not say that whether what I'm doing today is bigger than what I could have achieved if I would have continued my job or otherwise and all of that. But this is a side of me that I had no clue of. So the point is that while of course all of us will have some baggage.
Correct.
How much you are willing to leave that baggage and essentially find your own self is the journey that you need to undertake. Right. So each one of us will have something in that journey. But how much you are willing to leave to know yourself and what you can do is what is going to define who you can be. Otherwise तो खाए पिए पैदा हुए मर गए.
वो तो है. Correct. Yes. So we have seen you. The term that nowadays is associated with is a social currency. So I want to know more about social currency. और ये भी जानना है कि social currency के वजह से यात्रा है या यात्रा के वजह से social currency है.
So देखिए ये दोनों ही नहीं है. ये सब इसलिए है क्योंकि आप खोज करने के लिए तैयार हैं बिना इस बात को तय किए हुए कि आपको उसके नतीजे के रूप में क्या मिलेगा. So if you can be true wanderer in life, then you get yatra because you are a wanderer, and because as humans, as social beings, and because the way we grew from in last 30,000 years, from people who used to roam around the planet to people who are now subjected to a 3 BHK, 2 BHK or a 4 BHK home, the lakhs and lakhs of years of wanderer piece has not died in us.
Right.
But because we are restricted to our 1 BHKs and 2 BHKs and 3 BHKs, that wanderer is something which has been subjected to the baggage. And because the wanderer is subjected to the baggage, the challenge is that we are not in a position to explore something which will become our yatra. And when somebody does that, that exploration journey becomes their unique identity and a social currency, which then becomes monetizable or redeemable, because everyone who essentially is born and is by birth, by DNA, is wanderer in nature, finds a bit of him or her in you, and that bit of him or her in you is the tinge of social currency that you're leaving in each individual. So a tinge of me is in you, a tinge of me is in her and him and her, and when you bring together all these tinges, is then you get a piece, which is a package or a critical mass, which then becomes your social currency. A social currency, if I can put it in the jargonized manner, is a token, a fractional value chain of who you in totality are in others who are not linked with you but connected with you, and that token of yours lies somewhere in them, and when they see you in the journey that you are taking, the token in them gets activated, and that token binds you people together, and that becomes a currency which essentially relates two of you.
Yes, now even I can relate.
वो जर्नी, right? अब हर इंसान के अंदर वो एक होता है, तो जब आप किसी दूसरे को वो करते देखते हो तो आपको लगता है ये तो मेरे जैसा ही है, जो मैं भी करना चाहती या चाहता हूँ बट नहीं कर पाता हूँ या कर पाती हूँ, तो आप उसको देख करके खुश हो लेते हैं, और ये जो खुशी आपको मिलती है, ये खुशी कंसोलिडेटेड रूप में मेरी सोशल करेंसी है.
Okay. It's very for me now it is like very relatable what you're talking, and I can see people around me in my group also, so it's like connecting very nicely कि social currency सिर्फ आपके लिए नहीं, अभी मेरे लिए भी social currency बन गई है.
वो तभी है ना, क्योंकि देखिए हम इंसान हैं, राइट? इंसान के रूप में मैं चाहे अनचाहे रूप में हर दूसरे इंसान में अपने आप को कहीं ढूंढता हूं, और जब उसमें वो छोटा सा हिस्सा जो मेरा भी है मिल जाता है, तो मैं उस इंसान से जुड़ जाता हूं. और वो हिस्सा जितना मेरे लिए डिफिकल्ट होता है अचीव करना, और अगर वो दूसरा कोई कर रहा है, वो उतना ही ज्यादा एक्साइटिंग हो जाता है मेरे लिए, क्योंकि मैं चाह के नहीं कर पा रहा हूं और वो चाह के वो कर रहा है या कर रही है वो जो करना चाहता या चाहती है. तो मैं उसके बहाने वो कर लेता या कर लेती हूं जो मैं करना चाहता था या चाहती थी और नहीं कर पा रही हूं.
Oh, I'm totally blown with this thought. Thank you. Cool. So, like this journey, मतलब ये अब तक की सारी जर्नी है, आप अभी ग्लोबल भी गए हो, like you have seen European countries, Japan, Singapore, और आपकी काफ़ी कंट्रीज में अच्छी खासी पहुंच है. तो where if you compare India and other countries, so what is the gap that you see between us and between them?
देखिए ऐसा है कि फंडामेंटली किसी, और मैं आई एम एसेंशियली टेकिंग इट ओनली फ्रॉम अ स्टार्टअप पर्सपेक्टिव.
Yes. The fintech startup also we can
not
consider.
Qualified from other point of view.
No, yes.
From the point of view of startup at a larger level, दो चीजें होती हैं. एक तो ये कि आप पूरी शिद्दत से चाहो और दूसरी ये कि कायनात मिल जाए, राइट? तो कायनात जो है वो उस देश का, उस शहर का, उस मोहल्ले का बाजार है, और आप जो है उस बाजार में वो काबुली वाला हो जो बादाम पिस्ता बेचने आए हो, है ना? तो किसी भी बाजार में ये दो चीजें होती हैं, दुकानदार और बाजार. What we have been able to achieve as a economy is that we have been able to build a robust ecosystem which essentially ensures that बाजार जो है वो एक दूसरे से जुड़ा हुआ है, इंटरकनेक्टेड हो चुका है बहुत बड़े लेवल पर,
राइट.
तो इसके नतीजे के रूप में जब बाजार जुड़ा होता है और बाजार इंटरकनेक्टेड होता है, वो बाजार उस बाजार के दुकानदार की संभावनाएं बढ़ा देता है, वर्सेस वो बाजार जहां पर की बाजार इंटरकनेक्टेड नहीं है, तो हर दुकानदार को अपना प्रयास अलग करना पड़ता है. सो in our case, if I put it that way, globally in many of the markets, market growth and startup growth from an innovation lens point of view are disparate items. They don't work in conjunction with each other. In our case, the build up of platforms and the build of digital public good from an infrastructure point of view has ensured that the entry or the start point becomes equal for most of the players.
Okay.
And as a result of that, if I have a digital public good which is available to me if I am a Flipkart, at the same point of time, if I am a no cart also, the same digital public good is also available to me. So at least from a base point of view, capital can play different roles in different startups' life, but from a base point of view, I can also start, I can also dream, I can also think. Versus in many of the other markets wherein you don't have base infrastructure in place, so which means that you need to work that much more harder to make things happen. So therefore, in comparative to us from other markets and in general, and not specific to any market, but in general to market, our ability to kind of catalyze the value chain at a larger level is much better versus what is there in other markets.
Okay. So means if we consider innovation happening in fintech, so let's say UPI is a big game changer in India. वैसे ही Apple Pay is also coming up with a voice enablement in their platform. So ये innovation के लिए तो limit नहीं है. तो what do you think is a opportunity lies there in Indian market, and they have to capitalize that?
देखिए, in any market there will be cycles of innovation, which is you do certain things and you take a leap in that journey, and then it stabilizes, and then for a certain period of time it remains stable, and then you take another leap. So which is incremental movement led by innovation from a journey point of view at a broader market level. At an organizational level, you can have an exponential journey. At a broader market level, it is largely a incremental journey of growth, then a plateau for a certain point of time, then incremental journey of growth, and so on and so forth. And all of that. What we have experienced, largely driven by UPI, is a certain period of exponential growth as a market.
Okay.
Of course, when you look at in the larger scheme of things from a universe point of view, it's still a blip in the life of humankind. But from our journey as a nation point of view, last decade, largely driven by UPI based adoption and so on and so forth, has seen an exponential curve in our growth journey.
Correct.
And because it has seen exponential curve in our growth journey, it has had impact on many other things in that process. The more you and I transact digitally, the better is our digital footprint.
Correct.
The better is our digital footprint, the better is the ability of an institution to underwrite us. The better is the ability of an institution to underwrite us. The better is the ability of the institutions to offer us credit on the fly. The better is the availability of credit on the fly in a non-consumption led growth or business growth led world, that also means I have better availability of capital to drive my growth as an organization, as a business, and so on and so forth. Because when we pay, we end up paying to a business,
Right.
most often than not. And that essentially means availability of cash flow based lending, so on and so forth. This also means that it also opens up the possibilities of on the fly access to insurance, on the fly access to mutual funds and other products, which means that when you look at us from a comprehensive financial inclusion point of view, I have access to an instrument which helps me build digital footprint. The digital footprint leads to access to credit, which essentially can help me my growth, my aspirations journey, and so on and so forth.
Right.
It also parallelly exposes me to access to insurance, mutual fund, which means it protects me against risks. It essentially gives me long-term instruments of savings, which are market-beating instruments from the point of view of inflation, and so on and so forth. When you combine all of these, you are in a position to head towards what one calls as Sampurna Vittiya Samaveshan, or essentially comprehensive financial inclusion.
Okay.
So, payment rails are foundation pieces to essentially lead an individual in a society towards that piece.
Okay. Okay.
So that's what we have been able to achieve in last 1 decade, and potentially what you will see in next 5-7 years is now going to be an exponential growth, possibly on other 3 pieces, because payments rails are established, digital footprints are established, credit will follow, and so on.
And so on. Okay. So where do you see it's AI and blockchain and metaverse? So do you see the future in them, or there is still long way to go?
So look, blockchain and metaverse, I am skeptical. I have no clue, largely for the reason that most of this, and this is where the things become kind of challenging, largely for the reason that while we may want to talk about blockchain and metaverse, at the same point of time, if possibly we would have had AI, which is kind of has gone to the next level in the journey point of view, that AI would have, and that's a scary part which I'm going to talk about, which is that AI would have assumed that considering I have put my phone on an airplane mode, which essentially will mean that I don't want to be informed about anything at this point of time, and therefore this alarm that rang in the phone at this point of time should have not rung. Realizing, because when you're putting yourself on airplane mode just half an hour before the alarm, that means that you are potentially not interested in that alarm.
Correct.
So possibly the AI would have predicted that, and this alarm would have not have rung. But that's also a scary part of it, which is how intrusive technology can become in our lives.
Yes. That's
So
true.
somewhere, and that's what possibly will bring me towards the AI part of it, because we don't know, you don't know how intrusive technology will become in our lives, and potentially intrusive enough for us either to become slaves of it and used to it to such an extent that we won't care because we are used to the idea of that.
Correct.
Or essentially we'll become scared enough not to, or stop it at some point of time. But that percentage is going to be very, very small. Like, say for example, in your personal space, how many people you will be able to find who have decided not to opt for a WhatsApp?
Okay. Yes.
Possibly 1 in 1,000.
Right.
Or how many people you will be able to find in your personal space who have not opted for phone itself, which will be possibly 1 in lakh. So the point in journey of some of the technologies, when they become too intrusive, is this, that they become too part of who you are, that your separation of self and technology becomes next to zero, and as a result of that, your ability to disassociate yourself from that, howsoever you may crib about their dangers and so on and so forth from it,
Correct.
you'll end up being slave of that. So potentially we are looking towards a far more dumber society than who we are today, as at large, at a humanity level.
Correct.
Because if you can simply put a question on a chat GPT and put a question as to say 10 questions I should ask
to Abhishant Pant,
Abhishant Pant, to a fintech founder or things of that nature, and if I get those 10 questions, I'm just representing a set which did not originate from my intellectual capital, but essentially randomly came out of nowhere.
Yes.
So,
so we will not use our brain more.
So we are looking for. So we are potentially heading towards a dumber society. Than who we
very
are
true.
today.
Very true. True. Now, Gen Z that I have. So not just I have, but overall. So they are more relying on ChatGPT and not just ChatGPT, the AI models that we have, which is a very scary for everybody nowadays. Means all these school kids also will start using these modules then when they'll develop their brain and then when they'll develop their thought process. So it's a super scary thing.
That's going to happen, and that will happen because your basic desire as a human is to look for the shortest possible path to achieve the glory that you want to have. So if this provides you with the shortest possible path, then you will possibly take that path. So unfortunately now our ability to essentially question ourselves and not to take that path is will fundamentally be driven by how aware we are of who we are and what we can be. That will define that. Like in few occasions when I tried looking from a ChatGPT point of view, the moment I had those answers, the question that came in my mind that this is not who I am.
Right.
So I essentially am not looking at them because this doesn't represent the thoughts I hold for myself. And because 99% of the times I essentially end up throwing what I could chew and therefore bring my own flavor to that. What I got from outcome from a ChatGPT point of view is not the flavor of what I essentially represent. But then for us to reach that stage means that we know what our flavor is.
Correct.
And if we don't reach that stage, whatever comes out from a ChatGPT point of view is something what we feel is who we are. So then knowing who you are is important for you to be able to say yes or no to what comes out from ChatGPT point of view.
Right. Very true. So coming to the next question is, we have seen your portfolio startups who are, doing wonders like One Card, Pay Local, PayFi, I think Data Sutra. So ऐसे कहा जाता है कि हाँ अभिशांत पंत का हाथ लग गया. So yes, we would be reaching to next stage. It means I'm just jokes apart, but yeah, they are doing wonders. So I want to know, do you follow any certain process when you identify such लंबे रेस के घोड़े or what exactly is that?
देखिए फंडामेंटली आप हर वो इंसान जो गलती ना करे वो फिर उसने कुछ नया करा नहीं. तो हमने भी भारी गलतियां करी हैं and each one of us will essentially make mistakes.
Correct.
So for every success that you see, maybe you had 2 failures. So there will be failures. Like say when we started our journey from an investment point of view, the first investment that I did essentially became 0 in 10 months time frame.
Okay.
So it's not as if that every time what you do you succeed. It's a journey wherein you essentially become a bit better than who you were yesterday in your ability to identify things. So, and will we not do mistake again? The answer to that also is no.
Correct.
We will definitely make mistakes again because we are as human as anyone else can be. Somebody like Warren Buffett also invested in Paytm, which at some point of time, from his portfolio point of view, has become a mistake.
Correct.
In terms of the amount invested and the outcome received.
Yes.
And so on and so forth, and time invested and all of that. So if Warren Buffett and many others like them were not saved from the point of view of what they could create as an outcome, who are we? Right? So from a journey perspective, so I'm sure we'll make mistakes, we'll continue to make mistakes, which will make us possibly a bit better every single day. And possibly will not make same mistake again.
Correct.
But if we don't make same mistake again also, then we are also not human, because our tendency as a human and our ability to kind of decode every time perfectly the outcome is not going to be there, and there will always be 100 black swan things that can happen, and you don't know what can happen and what can go wrong in that process. What good happens is this, that if you have access to a very large base, in that very large base, your possibility of narrowing down on a cohort is far better. So अगर मैं 500 लोगों से मिल रहा हूं और अगर मैं बेवकूफ नहीं हूं, तो मैं उस 500 में से 15-20 जो ठीक ठाक हैं उनको ढूंढ पाऊंगा. उस 15-20 में से उस 3-4 पे पहुंचना is what the longer journey is all about. Understanding the human, understanding team, understanding what they're building, and all of that is a much longer process, and there is no defined parameter to do that.
Okay.
But the advantage that we have versus maybe a lot other people is because we see a very large set. Therefore, our narrowest cohort is also significantly bigger than what most others see. And therefore, our ability to possibly narrow down on something is much higher. And also the fact that because we are niche, we are focused on one domain.
Correct.
We do only that one thing, we don't do any other thing. So, and because of that, the pool of knowledge that you build over the period of time becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over the period of time.
Right.
And therefore, your ability to strike better becomes brighter. Like say for example, it's a bit of a filmy dialogue, but to say ki yaar, I don't fear the person who essentially has mastered the art, but I fear that person who has mastered one particular trick so well that it is impossible to beat him in that one particular trick. Which is, if I can punch with right hand harder on your face, and then if I have mastered that art of one punch so well that many a times then that one punch becomes the identity that I hold, and that defines. You practice it so hard that that one thing you are potentially better than others, but there will always be people who will be better than somebody else over the period of time, and you need to be humble and clear enough that there will be people who will be better than you. Like say for example, when I was born, at that point of time in my father's young age, Sunil Gavaskar was the cricketer that most followed. In my adulthood, it was Sachin Tendulkar. After that, it was Mahendra Singh Dhoni, and now Virat Kohli.
Correct.
So, when we were adoring Sachin Tendulkar, we could never think of the fact that there will be somebody who will come later on and will say that he is better or comparable from a Tendulkar point of view. And now there are enough and more who believe that Virat Kohli is better, or maybe Dhoni was better, and so on and so forth, right? So, at every stage, every age, you will have a newer set which will come, and that's the way humanity will progress.
Okay, and that's the way you follow. You don't follow the process, and it keeps. It triggers you the way. Okay, great. And how do you handhold any particular startup, or how do you? वो journey कैसी होती है when you take them to a next level or a growth path?
So journey में basically देखिए किसी भी startup को fundamentally 3 चीजें चाहिए होती हैं. एक वो कंधा जिस पे सर रख के वो रो सके. दूसरा वो कंधा जो उसको जरूरत पड़ने पर अपनी पीठ पे बैठा करके नदी पार करा सके, है ना?
राइट.
और तीसरा वो हाथ जो उसका हाथ पकड़ करके साथ चल सके, तब जब उसको ये मालूम नहीं है कि ये जो रास्ता है वो रास्ते में कहीं वो भटक तो नहीं जाएगा.
हाँ, राइट. तो
मोटा मोटी इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मोटा मोटी मतलब ये है कि आपको हर स्टेज ऑफ स्टार्टअप जर्नी में कुछ ना कुछ लगता है, और क्या आपके पास में कोई ऐसा है जिसके साथ में आप उसको बात कर सकते हो, समझ सकते हो. ये बड़ी ट्रिवियल सी चीज लगती है बट बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है मेनी अ टाइम्स, जहां पर कि लोग आपको जज नहीं करते और आपकी मदद कर सकते हैं. सो हम कोशिश ये करते हैं कि क्या हम हमारी स्टार्टअप को इस जर्नी में 3 चीजें दे सकें, which is helping them in their product or solution journey, to discuss, build, and challenge them from the point of view that whether what they are building or they have built is acceptable from a market lens point of view, and so on and so forth, which essentially then helps them build better products. Then if I have built a product, then can somebody help you see and take that product to market and essentially put you to right set of people. And finally, when it is needed at that point of time, can somebody help you essentially get that extra leeway or capital which can fast track your journey.
Right.
That's what we try to do.
Great. So which is a very essential thing for any startup founder, not just fintech, but any set of founders will look for. Great. So, and another thing is like there are, like you mentioned about Paytm, and there are other startups who are a failure for, in terms of where sometimes it goes wrong in case of regulations. So what 3 things that you can tell our audience that is a red flag, and 3 things which is a must to know about things?
I'll possibly say that, look, whatever said and done from a Paytm point of view, I would still continue to believe that that's an individual who defined and catalyzed the journey of our nation from the point of view of digital payments. So huge respect for the journey that they took and essentially got us into that bandwagon. Of course, many a times you kind of falter in the journey, and it is for them to you as an entrepreneur to come back from that. And I'm hoping and I'm rooting for the fact that they come back. You will always have ups and downs in the journey. That's how our journeys are from a life point of view, right? You will never have a journey wherein there is only upward trajectory. Up and down from a journey point of view essentially also makes you far better as an individual and far more humane and humble with the fact that there will be things that will not work out for you. So I think keeping that in mind, 3 things potentially what one should watch out for from a startup point of view is just that when you point out certain things from a regulation point of view, and do you find the founder to be of the opinion that it can be managed, or do you find the founder to be somebody who essentially takes cognizance of that and is willing to invest time and effort to make directionally a right progress? So I think one, that becomes important, but then in that case, are you also in a position to question the founder? That becomes important. So how independent you are in your ability to question a founder. So that becomes one piece. The second piece essentially is that when you submit a feedback to the founder, and that feedback submitted not just by you but others as well on different occasions, and that feedback is not leading to any kind of a change in the way the organization practices and behaves, that again becomes a red flag. If the consolidated view is this, that it is for good of the organization and is not being heard from the point of view of what it could essentially materially make an impact into the organization. I think that becomes second. And third piece somewhere I think is also about that how much of people who are associated with that organization believe that they are somewhere part of a larger journey. That I am talking more from the point of view of an organization which becomes an outlier and becomes a generational organization. Generational organizations, you as an investor, potentially in 5 years, if you have done extremely well, you'll possibly come up with one founder who will be of that type. One. Out of possibly thousands. So generational founders you don't find. But when you find generational founders, what you will find a commonality in them is this, that they always had a set or a pool of people who believed in the much larger possibility of the journey. And they remained associated with that journey for a very large period of time. Today, before coming to this place, I met with one such individual, and that individual and the discussion which we had, and when we were coming back, I and there is another entrepreneur, we were coming back, and that entrepreneur dropped me here. We were talking about what is it which you are essentially, when you get associated with a startup in the journey, or when you are building a startup in the journey, you essentially look forward to is somewhere financial outcomes, somewhere the possibility of a legacy, and finally a huge sense of purpose.
Correct.
When these three things come together, it is then that you get a very large set which can make huge impacts. Most often than not, you don't get it many places, and therefore most often than not, you will not find generational companies. Generational companies se matlab ye hai, those who make large enough impact in the society and overall the way you and I stand, and their impact is seen, observed and visible beyond the people who started them. Maybe say out here from the point of view of Bajaj, Infosys and others.
Tata,
so very fair, on a very limited basis you will find generational companies.
Correct, right, very true. And 3 points or 2 points that you could say ki you should do or you should look for.
So what we are definitely, because we come at a day -1 in the journey of a startup, wherein that means that you don't have an idea, you really don't have a product, you may have an idea but not baked, you want to discuss, build, and you want to reach a stage. So what matters the most is that how often the founder is willing to pick up the phone, call up, discuss, debate, get involved, whiteboard, what kind of people getting associated, team, and what's the larger purpose they want to drive from that conversation point of view. So when you get these things together, which is the constant willingness to, and the constant desire and urge to continue to discuss the journey, the team that at a common level believes in that journey and puts passion and purpose together, is where you essentially find the right fit. Of course, again, that becomes very difficult to find, imagine, and all of that.
Yes, that's true. Means every startup goes through that phase, and it is very essential to have like-minded people in their own set of close networks, so that they can take the next step very well. And what you said very well, that those 3 things that should not do and the things that you should follow is apt. I mean, I'll suggest my audience that whatever you're going through, you need to analyze well when for your further journey. The last question for this segment is, what would you suggest to new startup founders who are coming up, or startup enthusiasts who are willing to start a fintech startup? What message will you give to them, and what would be a particular segment or sector in fintech that they should look for to be a successful?
I will fundamentally say, boss, check that whether what you are building is from a compliance and regulations point of view, is it in gray area, in white or black? If it is gray or black, stay away. Go by letter and spirit of what is written, and not essentially just by the letter. Both letter and spirit are important. So that's the fundamental piece. The second piece, which when one is starting from a founder perspective, one should be very clear in which specific part of the journey they are following. Are they going to be a regulated entity, RE? Are they going to be a TSP, which is a tech service provider, or are they going to be a DSA or distributor of products which somebody else manufactures?
Okay.
So, am I going to be a plumber? Am I going to be a manufacturer? Or am I going to be a distributor? These 3 roles, as we define well, will essentially help us in becoming clearer and clearer who we can be in that journey. And in that process, be very clear about, am I in any ways going on the wrong side of what regulations and compliance define? If there is even an iota of doubt, don't pursue that path. Be very clear about it, and then go ahead and do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Abhishant. It was lovely having you here, and we had a really insightful discussion today, and especially the social currency part. I got very connected, and I'm sure our audience also will get connected, and will create a social currency amongst us or in entire network. And the thought you have given for having a startup and nurturing it to the next level is a very commendable to listening from your side. Thank you so much once again. And a last line that I could say here today is I hope इस यात्रा का सफर हमें किस खूबसूरत मंजिल तक लेके जाए. Thank you so much.